Hello and welcome to everyone who is joining us tonight. I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to join us. Okay. And while we're doing that, I'm just going to introduce Claire. Claire, it is lovely having you with us tonight.
No, thank you for inviting me.
And I know that this is going to be really valuable to anyone who's seeking to understand their menstrual cycle. Any woman, any age.
Yeah.
So again, tonight this is about menstrual wisdom with the lovely Clare Spink. So we're hosting it from Thinktree. As we like to think, we're more than a professional association. We offer membership insurance training, quality assurance and CPD for the worldwide health and well-being sector. Have a look at us if you are in that industry and are looking to be part of a reputable organisation. So tonight we've got Clare, as I said. The subject is menstrual wisdom and the 4 phases of the menstrual cycle and how you need to adapt to each one. So Clare started off as a reflexologist. And like fertility and reflexology is quite a big area, isn't it, Clare?
It is. And I obviously studied fertility as part of reflexology, but it was never my focus at that point. But yes, I certainly blend it into my sessions now.
Yeah. So I think myself, again, if you look at this, you can just pause if you're listening to the recording. That fertility problems are the result of physical or emotional trauma, including scar tissue, digestive complaints, stress and anxiety. I find that so interesting. You know, how many people, let me go back. How many people find they can't get pregnant, adopt a child, relax, and then they get pregnant?
Yeah, happens all the time. Or they're with the wrong partner.
Or they're with the wrong partner.
There's numerous reasons, but that's always a big one.
Numerous reasons, but yeah. So anyway, on that, I'm going to hand over to Clare to let you know exactly what she's going to take you through. If you've got any questions, just put them in chat, or you can put them in the Q&A box as you like, and we will ask them at the end of the webinar, unless there's something particularly pertinent, in which case I will butt in and go straight for Clare.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I take a breather, jump in quick.
Okay.
Once I get started.
I'm really looking forward to it, Clare. Right, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to hand you over to Clare. Clare, welcome and thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.
Right, let me just start sharing my screen. Okay. So I like to think that when we have menstrual wisdom, we are empowering ourselves. And this is mostly for women to understand their own menstrual cycles. But I do love it when men listen in as well, and they take on this wisdom and they use it to better know their partners or their sisters or, you know, their daughters. And I think when I shared this information at the Holistic Health Show in May, there was a gentleman that came along and he loved the information, and he said that, you know, it made sense as to why his wife was the way she was. So we're going to dive right in. So let's start with, when we understand our menstrual cycles, it helps us to unravel our emotions, because we know, if we're therapists, we know that we are a blend of our mind, our body and our spirit, and therefore we need to understand that we change throughout the cycle. Our hormones change, which means that our moods will change with it. We're not meant to be linear. Men are linear, but women are cyclical, and so we need to understand that we're not going crazy at certain points of the cycle. These are parts of why we have a menstrual cycle, is to help us to dive into all the different emotional aspects of ourselves. And we're going to understand that as we go through this webinar tonight. So I'm going to just say right at the beginning, I'm just coming to the end of a cold, so I've got a awful cough and a bunged up head. So if I do have to stop and cough throughout the way, I do apologise now, but I'll try and keep it brief. So as I said, men are cyclical. and women, sorry, men are linear and women are cyclical. And so it's the saying, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. It's why we don't really always understand each other. But with this knowledge, it can help to bring us a little bit closer so that we can live in unison together. The other thing that really affects us is the oral contraceptive pill or any other hormonal contraception, because it changes our hormone structure. And so it means that when we go on the contraceptive pill, we actually become linear. And that means that as women, we then try to act and think like a man, because it means we're not living in truth with our own inner feelings. And that's not to say that men don't live in truth with their inner feelings. They have different methods of how they do that. But as a woman, when we are masking our hormonal cyclical changes, we are masking our ability to drop in and to know our wisdom. And the oral contraceptive pill, it also masks our natural pheromones. And if we go on the pill when we're in our 20s and we meet our partner, whether that's a male or a female, it inhibits us from biologically selecting the right partner to reproduce with later in life. Because when we have the natural pheromones, that helps our body to know who is and who isn't the right partner. It also means that when we're on the contraceptive pill and we're living in a linear fashion, we can sometimes choose a partner that when we come off the pill, because we then have the ability to have a cyclical process of editing and looking at what is and isn't working for us, we can then kind of come off the pill and go, oh, hang on a minute, I've made the wrong choice here, because we are actually listening to ourselves more. There we go, first one. And so you do see that a lot of women, they come off the pill and they try to get pregnant. And I've seen this a number of times over and over in my clinic, where women have come off the pill, they try to get pregnant. And as I'm listening to their stories, I'm thinking, they're not with the right partner. And they're not getting pregnant because they're not with the right partner. And they take a break and they obviously, well, not all of them do, but a lot of them leave their partner and they find a new one. And they often get pregnant really, really quickly, because now they're choosing someone where they haven't got the contraceptive pill masking their true emotions, and they've got their natural pheromones in place, and they can find the right person for them. That was a little bit deep. I don't normally share that much from her. But don't take that on to heart. If you do find your partner on the contraceptive pill, please don't go off and rush away and go divorce them. Anyway, so our menstrual cycle, it mirrors nature. So our moon cycle, we call it the moon time or the moon cycle, it's because it mirrors the moon, and the moon is roughly 29 days, and our cycles are supposedly, if we're living in tune with the moon, then they're around 28 to 29 days. Both the moon cycle and the menstrual cycle are divided into 4 phases. We've got the dark moon, we've got the waxing, the full, and the waning moon. And that corresponds to our menstruation, our pre-ovulation, our ovulation, and our pre-menstruation. And I'll go through each of those phases as we dive into the seasonal work. Now, you don't have to. A lot of people really kind of believe that you need to be bleeding with the dark moon and be ovulating with the full moon in order to be truly living in alignment with the moon. But sometimes we need to kind of shift our menstrual cycle to be at a different part of the moon, because we actually need a balance of how the moon phases are working in tune with our menstrual cycle. So there's no right and there's no wrong. But in the olden days, we all bled with the dark moon and we ovulated with the full moon, because the light from the full moon would affect our ovulation and would affect our pituitary gland. So and we didn't have all the street lights outside, or the EMFs from our computers, or the different little lights that we have on in our room, which actually changes the light that we receive when we're sleeping. So here we have our 4 phases of our menstrual cycle. So you can see the red one here is the menstruation, and that connects to the dark or the new moon, as I said. It also connects to the life phase of our childhood, so from preconception all the way up until we get our first bleed. That is part of menstruation, but we also reach the menstruation part again of our life phase when we get to around 70, 75-ish. It's kind of like the wise years. It's also connected to connected to the winter. So we call it our inner winter. And the archetype that I like to bring in with this one is the wisdom keeper. The pre-ovulation is the green. So that's roughly from, say, day 7 to, well, maybe day 5 or 6 to, say, about day 10 of your cycle, if we're looking at an average 28-day cycle. That is connected to the waxing moon. It's roughly our teens and our 20s. So once we've got our first bleed, all the way up until either when we physically birth or we birth ourselves. So it's roughly, you know, kind of towards the late 20s, early 30s. It's connected to our inner spring, and the archetype is the nymph. And when I talk about the nymph, I'm not talking about a nymphomaniac. I'm talking about nymph as in the nubile young goddess, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Then we've got the blue one, which is the ovulation. This one connects to the full moon. This is our kind of our mothering phase. So it's around our 30s, our 40s. It's connected to the summer inner season. And I call this the creatrix, and I prefer to call it the creatrix. Some people call it the mother, but I like to call it the creatrix because not everybody wants to or can be a mother. And then that makes them feel that they're not connecting into this part of the cycle. But the creatrix, we're all creatrix. We all are creating something in life. And then we have the last phase here, which is the premenstrual phase. And it's the phase that most women do not enjoy. It's actually one of my favourites, and you'll find out why when we dive in. It's connected to the waning moon. And this is from our perimenopausal through our menopause. And kind of when we just get towards, you know, the latter part of our 60s. I mean, I've got 75 there because some women do take, you know, they last a lot longer. So they get a little bit more time, but it's around, you know, that kind of latter part there of our menopause. It's connected to the autumn, our inner autumn, and I like to see it as the warrior phase. Okay, so we're going to look at why it relates to the inner and the outer seasons. So if we look at the outer seasons, so the seasons of the year, how the plants and the trees behave in nature during that time, it can also give you a bit of a reminder as to what's going on with each of your inner seasonal phases. So, you know, in winter, when we're bleeding, the plants and the trees are dying and they're in their restful period. In the spring, you've got new life, it's forming, it's lots of new shoots. The summer, the plants and trees are in full bloom and they're full of vibrancy. And then in the autumn, everything starts to shed and we start to clear out. And this will make a lot more sense as we go through. So the reason that the archetypes are named for each phase is the wisdom keeper. This is the one that's connected to the new moon, the winter, the menstruation. It's the time when we're resting. It's the time of our real wisdom, when we're really in tune with ourselves. And to say, you know, a lot of people question me on this when I say this about, you know, our childhood is, you know, our wisdom keeper years. But actually, children are incredibly wise because at this point, they've not had any ego kind of come in, and no one's kind of really knocked them out and said, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Children know. Children instinctively know what is right and what is wrong. It's us as adults, unfortunately, that kind of start to knock that out of them. But so I've written here, like, with an awareness of enhanced consciousness, wisdom is shared with love and compassion. And that relates to those really early childhood years and the latter years, when in your latter years you've lived the life. You'd be like the wise woman of the village, where you just know everything. You've lived life, so you know a lot of stuff. And in in indigenous cultures, they always go to the wise woman for their knowledge, for their wisdom, and it would always be the wise women that would pass on the knowledge down through the lineage because they know. And as a child, you know, I know that I've got a daughter, and I'm, you know, she's kind of stepping into the nymph phase now. But when she was younger, I could bring anyone around her, and I could see by her reaction whether that was a good person. Well, I don't mean good person, but, you know, a person that she connected to from their energy, whether they were the right people to have in our space, because she would respond. So this is that winter phase. Is really that phase in our menstruation as well, is of us really knowing ourselves. So hold that kind of bit of wisdom there for when we go into the next phases. And the nymph, like I said, the nymph is fun. She's a young goddess, but she's not fully formed. She's not really grounded. She's that teenager, you know, she's full of lots of social activity. She's full of life and vibrancy, but she's not quite sure of who she is. So she's just not in that grounded space. And she's got hopefully she's got a lot of mischief about her. If she's living her teens, as she should be quite mischievous. The creatrix, this is when we are in that, kind of like the mothering phase. That's the woman who is so deeply connected to herself, and she taps into her creativity, her juicy power, so that she can birth life, ideas, and visions. And that's why I say it's not about being a mother, because, as I said, not everybody wants to be, but we've all got a vision within us. We've all got ideas of who we want to be, what we want to bring out into the world. And this is that phase when we often kind of get the opportunity to do so. And then in the autumn, it's that warrior. And she is that menopausal woman. She's in her kind of 40s. And she's got strength and deep passion and wisdom to forge new pathways that are more in alignment with her and her calling. So it's more about her knowing who she is and what she wants. Into each season, I'm not going to go through all of the slides in like reading out. You've got them there so that you can read them yourself, because I've written a lot of the science-based stuff, but the juicy stuff is more in the energetics and emotions and how we are in them. So like I said, this menstruation is winter, it's the dark moon, wisdom keeper. So if we think about how we are in the winter months, we want to do less socializing, apart from the Christmas period when more people want to socialize. But the normal winter months, we want to slow down. We don't really want to be around a lot of people. We want to cozy up. We want to put our daggy clothes on, our baggy things. We don't really want to, be strutting our stuff in our tight fitting outfits, because when we're in menstruation, we're more bloated and we're like more uncomfortable. And we just want to be comfy. We want to kind of hang out on the sofa and chill with Netflix and, chocolate and bottle of wine or whatever it is that you want to do. But it's your time to just kind of withdraw from the outside world, be like a bear. So I always kind of say, for me, when I've got my bleed, I'm going into my womb cave. And it means that I don't actually want to be around that many people. I want my own space. And we all need to have that time to slow down and to rest. Because in the olden days, we would all be in a red tent. We'd all bleed at the same time, and the men knew that women were at their wisest point here, because this is when we have our deepest intuition, is when we are connected to our intuition the most. And so we have dream time. And so the men knew that when the women slowed down, when they rested, when they went into the red tent, they would get their dreams. And those dreams were often prophetic. So they would come out and they'd say, we need to move from this land because we're going to have a famine or whatever it is. And so the same with us in modern age is that when we slow down and we listen to our dreams and we take time to meditate and rest during our period, this is the time when our ideas come to us. It's the time when our wisdom comes through. And we really need to listen to what is coming to us in our dreams and in that meditation. So we may get the idea, and we're going to use the idea of a book to explain how the menstrual cycle can be used and apply that to anything that you do in your business world or your personal life. But so in the idea, when we've got winter and we've got our bleed, I get the idea of writing a book. Now I'm going to hold that idea. I'm going to keep it close to me, because it's the same time of our life as well. When we're pregnant and when we've just birthed, we need to keep that baby close to us. We actually don't want to be sharing that baby out with the whole world, because this is going off tangent, but I like to share this with them, is the first 40 days of a baby's life, they have not fully come into their spirit, their soul, into their body. And they don't want every Tom, Dick and Harry in their energy field, because their energy hasn't fully formed yet. So they want to be kept close to mama. They want to be in, and obviously dad as well, but in that mum's field, so that they know they are safe. And excuse me, the same with your idea. It's a new idea. You've just birthed it. Keep it to you. It is precious. hold it close. Don't go out and share it to the world just yet, because you actually need to work through a process with that book or with any idea before you can kind of promote it out to the world. So the energy around this is very much about slowing down. And when we don't slow down, when we don't honour our period, our womb starts to kind of slap us in the face, and it will give us period pain, or it'll give us like, you know, it will drain us and really tire us out. I know that when I don't listen to my period and I think, nope, I've still got to keep going, I'm just going to get super, super tired. And my body says, you will rest, because I'm going to make you so tired that you have no choice. And it's the way that, you know, all women have lived throughout the centuries. And unfortunately, social media, not social media, but the advertising world have tried to tell us that as women, when you have your period, you don't need to slow down. All you need to do is shove a Tampax up and keep on horse riding or keep rollerblading and keep doing all these things. But that's not the way it is. You know, there's an amazing company actually in Bristol who have taken on the understanding of the menstrual cycle. And I think it was thanks to Alexandra Pope, who's a big pioneer in this menstrual work. And they give every woman the first day of their period off work. It's not part of sick pay. It's not part of their holiday. They get that first day off because they know that actually that woman isn't going to be a lot of use to them. And if they honour the woman, then they're going to be more productive for the rest of the month. So if more companies did that, that would be amazing. And excuse me. The other thing that if we don't slow down at this time, like we don't only just get those period pains, but we're also likely to get more irritable, and it will reflect in the other parts of our cycle. I know that a lot of women say to me that if they haven't slowed down and they haven't honoured their period, that when they get their next autumn, so their next premenstrual phase, it's like rage. And so it is a really beautiful time to give yourself, even if you give yourself that homeopathic remedy of 1%, just 5 minutes to have a cup of tea, have a bath, take yourself away from the kids or work or whatever it is, and just give yourself some time. So, like I said, we don't want to socialise. And if you've got a partner that really understands what you're experiencing as a woman, even if you don't have painful periods, it's just the fact that this is your sacred time. Then if you've got a good partner, be it a male or a female, they'll just give you your space. They'll buy you chocolate, or they'll cook you dinner, or they'll do the washing up, they'll bath the kids, they'll do whatever they need to do to just give you a little bit of rest time. And one of the most lovely things I personally love doing when I get my period is I've got my, I actually use what are called Sassy She cards. They're kind of like oracle cards, and they're fun. And I use them to do like a 4-card spread. And so one of those cards is for each phase of my cycle, just kind of, you know, connecting to my womb and say, okay, womb, what are we looking at this month? What do I need to kind of think about with each phase? But you can also set up like a little womb altar, just light a candle and just thank your womb, because your womb is your wisdom. And I know that sounds like a really intense and a powerful comment to make, but once we've hopefully gone through today, you will understand that your womb is your wisdom. And if you're not bleeding and you've gone through the menopause, don't worry, you still have this wisdom in your womb. And if you haven't got a womb because you've had a hysterectomy, you've got the energy of your womb. But then you will want to connect in, because you're not having your physical cycles, you want to connect in to the moon phases. Now, obviously, I've made a note here that one of the reasons that women crave chocolate when they've got their period is because we are actually craving magnesium. Unfortunately, dairy milk does not have a lot of magnesium in it. This is where raw cacao is an absolute godsend when it comes to your period, because it's got, so raw cacao is so high in magnesium, and it's got lots of other really good nutrients in it as well. So it's a beautiful one. And the reason is that we will need that magnesium because it stops the cramps. So we only get cramps whether we get menstrual cramps, whether we get hiccups, whether you get the eye twitches or the leg cramps. They're all the same. It all means that you've got a lack of magnesium. So see that as a sign as well during the rest of the month. If you get like leg cramps, or you, like I say, you get hiccups a lot, It just means that you've got too little magnesium. So get some magnesium in to your nutritional diet. So I think that's pretty much it. Oh, we will talk about, we will bring in, I haven't written it on this, but we can also bring in sex, because a lot of people, some people don't like to have sex when they've got their period, and that's fine. If you do enjoy having sex when you're menstruating, because you are such an open portal, your womb is wide open, you are so open and connected to the energies, you need to ensure that if somebody is entering into your energy space, that they are someone that really honors you. But if you do like to have sex during this period of time, it can really help with relieving cramps, because you are flooding your body with oxytocin, and you're also relieving a lot of your period cramps if you can have an orgasm. So even if you don't want to have physical penetrative sex, you can either self-pleasure or ask your partner to pleasure you too. On that note, we are going to head into spring. So this is our pre-ovulation. Like I said, it's the nymph, and it's that kind of real vibrant energy that we have. And so you know what it's like when you're in your teens and your 20s, you have got so much energy, you want to socialize with everybody. You don't actually care who you socialize with, really, because you just want to be out there, you want to be partying, you want to be talking to everybody. And you can hear actually that my voice has changed, my speed of voice. I've dropped into kind of spring energy while I'm talking, because everything's at, like, you know, a much faster pace. And it's the same as the spring energy outside. Everything is starting to shoot up. So you've got lots of new ideas coming. It's that time of your cycle when you suddenly look at your computer. And it's funny, because before I came on this Zoom today, I had to close down about 30 tabs so that when I did my share screen, you didn't see everything that was open in the background, because I am currently in my spring phase of my menstrual cycle. And it's that phase where you're thinking of one thing and you go, oh yeah, and this and this and this, and you can multitask, because you have got so much energy, and you've also, you haven't got necessarily great calm focus, but you have got a lot of focus to get things done. So you could literally be washing up, sweeping the floor, and doing the dishwasher all at the same time. It's a great time to get, you know, to get stuff done. So if we go back to the book idea, this is the time when you're likely to write 20 ideas of like chapters, or you may even write 20 chapters, because you've just got that drive and that passion and that focus. It's a time when, you know, you're more likely to start new projects of going to the gym or going running or doing, you know, more exercise. And what you need to be careful of is that at this point of your cycle is when people ask you for social events later on. Do you want to come here? Do you want to go to this, I don't know, this rave here, or this party here, or this, you know, hike up this mountain or whatever? You need to think, because in spring, you're just going to go, yeah, I want to do everything, because you've got the energy. But you need to think, okay, what day does that fall on? Because if it's in 2 weeks' time when you're in pre-menstruation, you're not going to want to do it. So really be mindful of what you agree to when you're in your spring energy. It's quite funny. We obviously, Rosemary and I had a conversation earlier today, and I was like, yeah, what articles do you want me to write? What do you want me to do? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm writing a list of all these things that I'm going to do. And I know that I've now got to focus and put them all in when I'm in my spring and my summer energy, because otherwise they're not going to get done. So just keep that in mind for yourself. And if you're listening and you've got a partner who is menstruating, or you've got a daughter that's menstruating, if you want them to get things done, get them to do it in their spring, because they're more likely to do it in that phase. So hang on, excuse me. So it's kind of like you're on the happy pill as well at this point. You know, you just love everybody, and you can be a lot kinder to people, and you can tolerate a lot more. So, you know, when you've got those friends that are kind of like energy vampires and they suck the life out of you, you can tolerate them pretty much in your spring, because they don't really phase you. And when your partner's doing things that bug you normally in 2 weeks' time, it won't bother you so much in spring. But this spring energy can be used, and we'll come back to this spring energy, because it can be a really powerful time if you need to make big decisions in your life. So when it comes to clothing in spring, it's our playful time. You know, in clothing, you suddenly lost all your bloating. because your period's over and you feel fantastic. And so you can wear things that are more tight-fitted. You want to wear more vibrant colours. Your underwear will change. You know, you want to wear more sassy underwear. Well, not everybody does, but you want to wear more sexy or sassy underwear. And when it comes to having sex, sex is more about, you know, you just want lots of it. It's about, I always get this around the right way, quality over, no, it's quantity over quality. Because you just feel like a rampant rabbit, because it's the same as, it's why the nymph kind of does come into it a little bit, because it's that part of when you're in your teens and your 20s when you just want lots and lots of sex because it makes you feel good. So this is a really good time to focus on all your projects. If you've got daughters that are menstruating and they've got like a month at school where they've got to do like a big writing project or a big creative project, this is the time to get them to do it, because there's no point trying to get them to do it in their autumn phase or their winter phase, unless obviously they're on like, you know, weekly deadlines. But if you can help your child do their projects in this part of their menstrual cycle, it's the best part of spring and summer. So as we pop on to summer, I'll take a quick breather. Like I said, this is in the spring, our energy comes out from our womb space and it kind of is like a wide, I'm trying to get my arms into this zoom, hang on a minute, which way around. So it's nice and wide. In the summer, it focuses and it becomes smaller. And it's the same as how our energy becomes, because when you step into the creatrix, into the mother, if you become a physical mother, you now don't have that energy to give to like hundreds of people. You've got the energy to give to your family and to yourself, and it becomes a smaller, more direct. You've still got a lot of energy as a general rule, but it's more focused. And so now if we go back to the book, you've got these 20 chapters. You're now going to look at 3 chapters and you're going to write probably the best 3 chapters, because your energy is more focused, it's calmer. And this is a really good time in your summer phase, in your ovulation. It's a really good time if you need to do a presentation, because you're less scatty and you're calmer and more focused with your wording, and your you know, your brain's not going off in a million miles. You still want to socialize, but you would choose to socialize with less people. So you want to be around like your closest people, your best friends, your partner, your family, your children. Your children are part of your family, but I mean, if you haven't got children, the extended family. So we still have this real warmth and this kind of loving energy around us. And we are at the height of our sexual arousal, and our pheromones are going to be super, super high. We are just emitting all these lovely pheromones, so that men, it's why in the past, before, you know, we had these little OPK kits that people like peed on and went, oh, look, I'm ovulating, come and have sex with me to make a baby. Our bodies knew, and we gave off the smell, so men knew that we were ovulating, and also everything about us becomes a little bit more plump and more inviting. But as a woman, we had natural physical signs that we were ovulating as well, so that we knew our bodies, we knew that we felt a certain way, and we had these we had slippery wet mucus, we would have swollen vulva, we'd also got like a little pea size, one size or the other in our groin, that would let us know we were ovulating on one side or the other. So we knew that we were ovulating. Obviously nowadays people are really out of tune with what's going on with their bodies. They don't understand about their mucus, they don't understand what's happening internally, and so we rely on, you know, our apps. I always find it funny when people say to me, oh, my app tells me I'm going to ovulate on this day, but you know, that's only relying on you know, technology. It's not actually relying on what's actually going on in your body. Our body gives us all of the signs, and that's why a lot of people actually struggle to get pregnant, because they are not having sex at the right time, because the doctor says you ovulate on day 14, therefore have sex on day 14. You could ovulate day 12, day 16, you know, and then you've missed your window. We actually have a 6-day window of when we are fertile, we are able to conceive. Kind of slightly going off track, but that is our bodies know what it's supposed to be doing. And the same with, this is why we feel more horny, why we feel more sexual at ovulation. It's because Mother Nature said, I'm going to make sure that you want to have sex so that you can have a baby. You know, you shouldn't just rely on the fact that, you know, we had to find our partner attractive at that point of the month. You know, it actually, she made us have the physical hormones going on, and the energy that went with it. So our clothes at this point as well are still kind of more tight fitting, but we may not be quite as bold and as brave as we were in that spring phase. We still ooze with confidence. We still are, like I say, loving and warm, but it's just a calmer sense than in the spring. I think we've covered everything about summer. You do feel like a superwoman in this phase. I like to call this a bit of the superwoman phase, because, you know, if you are a physical mother and you're holding down a career and you've got a partner as well, you do become superwoman. And this is the point when you can cope with being a superwoman. Give it another few days and you head into premenstrual or the menstrual phase, and, you know, it all goes a little bit pear-shaped. So this is my favourite phase. Most people really struggle in the premenstrual phase because it's when we go into our shadow. It's when people kind of go, oh, she's got the builders in, or she's got this, or she's got that, or she's ratty, or, you know, we can be irritable. We can be more angry. We can be more feisty in this phase. But there's a reason for that. And it's because it is our editing phase of our cycle. The same as the external autumn, when the leaves start to shed and drop and we need to clear away so that we can make pathways for the new. The same is in our life. There are, I can't remember what the statistics are now, but there's a lot of women who get into around their 40s, which is in this kind of warrior phase, and they edit their life quite drastically. A lot of the time they get divorced, because if they haven't got divorced because they were on the contraceptive pill and realised they weren't the right person for having children with, they've now gone through 20 years of being with this person, and they've got to this point of realising that actually they're not living in tune with themselves. They are realising that they've tolerated a lot. And this is that life phase where you can go, hang on a minute, I'm not. It's always hard to actually teach this without doing any swearing. I normally swear about this in menstrual in the autumn phase. But you're just not going to tolerate any crap. You're just not going to put up with what isn't working for you. So it's where you will edit out friends. So it's either your life phase or this week of your cycle, where, let's for example, you're on Facebook and the friend that always posts a picture of her in a bikini, and she says, oh, I'm so fat. In your spring, you'll look at it and go, oh, and I'll write a nice comment. In summer, you'll write a nice comment. In autumn, you either just say, oh, stop being a victim, or you might just edit them and delete them off your Facebook page. The same is in your real life. The friend that you had coffee with in spring, who's a bit of a vampire, you tolerate her in spring, and in autumn, you're just sitting there and you're tearing your hair out and you can't stand to be around her. And you come home and you rant and you rave about her and you go, oh, I'm never having coffee with her again. And then 2 weeks later, you're having coffee with her because you've gone to just spring where you love her again. So it's that phase where it is the shadow. It's where the stuff that we don't want to look at about ourselves really can come up. So in the song, in the film Frozen, Elsa sings the song, be the good girl you have to be, conceal, don't feel. And that's what women have been taught to be like since we're like, you know, since we are tiny. We are taught to be people pleasers. And majority of us, should I say, not everybody is. We're taught to be people pleasers. We're taught to be the good girls. And people love us when we're the good girls and we don't fight back. And when we do fight back and we say our piece, we get called a bitch, or we get called, you know, all sorts of names. But actually, just as men, we have the right to speak our truth. And in our autumn phase, this is when we often do speak our truth. It's the truth speaking phase. And we can be a little bit harsh with our tongue at this phase. But it can be of huge benefit to you, depending on if you need to edit this person or out of your life for good. Or so the idea with this is, see what's coming up for you in autumn. See what's not working for you. So say you've got a partner. I love this example. You've got a dishwasher in spring and in summer. They walk in and they put their bowl on the side, but the dishwasher's right here. And in spring and summer, you just pick the bowl up and you put it in the dishwasher. In autumn, if they put the bowl on the side, you pick the bowl up and you throw the bowl at their head, because you're now so angry the fact that they can't put the bowl in the dishwasher. So you need to look at, what is it about them not putting the bowl in the dishwasher? Is it the fact that they're treating you like a skivvy? Is it the fact that, you know, they're lazy or whatever it is? Now, obviously, you could throw the bowl at their head. It's not going to accomplish a lot. I mean, it could accomplish quite a lot, actually, if you hit them quite hard, but it's not going to accomplish the greatest outcome. So you need to work out what's coming up for you. You take the knowledge of what is irritating you, what's not working for you, what's giving you the ick, what's not making you feel good. Take it into your period. Because when you're in your period, like I said at the beginning, you go into that quiet time and you sit there and you can meditate, or you just say, okay, so this has come up for me. What do I need to do about it? How do I really feel about it when I've got this space to be calmer, to be sitting with it, to see how it really feels in my body? What is this triggering in me? What is this connected to? How do I want to work with it? And then you can take it into your spring, because in spring and in summer, we love everybody. And we can say, okay, sweetheart, when you do this, it makes me feel like this. That's if you want to keep them around. The same with the vampire friend. Work out what's not working. Meet them in the spring and summer and say, okay, this isn't working for me when you do blah, 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 blah. But you can do it in a nice way because you're in your spring. However, if you want to get rid of them for good, do it in your autumn, because you won't take any crap from them. So I love to share my own personal experience. When I tried to divorce my husband, the first time I thought, right, I'll work through it. I listened to my own advice. I did it in my spring the first time. And I spent an hour and a half sharing a letter that I'd written as to all the reasons that I wanted to divorce him. Unfortunately, because I was in my spring, I let him talk me into counselling, because I was in that nubile kind of, I was a little bit vulnerable because I was connected to my teens where I didn't really know who I was. And so I had that vulnerability in me. So the second time I asked him for divorce was a couple of months later. I waited until I was in my autumn. I walked in the door. I did it in 8 minutes and I was out the door and done. I didn't even give him a chance to really speak. And because I knew I'd gone through another 2 cycles of listening to myself and going, no, I do want this to be over. I know this isn't working for me. And the reason that I share that is because you can see how the difference between using the spring and an autumn energy. And obviously, as a personal experience, I know that it works. So you can use that. And you need to sometimes edit people and things out your life. So a lot of people, a lot of women are now taking like a menopause gap year. And they're leaving their, you know, their careers and their jobs, and they're taking time out. A lot of women start coming into like the holistic health world in their 40s because suddenly they've gone, hang on a minute, this business world that I'm in is like linear, it's 9 to 5, and I obviously expected of me. That's not working for me right now. You know, I want to be doing this more kind of feminine work. And so they do the career change, and you see that a lot in the 40s as well. So if you are a man listening to this and you've got a wife and she's heading into her 40s, please be just mindful. I am joking. But if you can have the communication, and this is where it really should work, is that if partners can understand women in this part of their cycle and use it as a good time for communication, to listen to, okay, well, what's not working for you right now? Why don't we have a conversation? Let's see how we can work together on this. It will help to bring the couples together in a lot more stronger way. If we bring this into our idea of our businesses, we've got that book, we've got the idea of the book, we've got 20 chapters kind of like penned out, we've got 3 chapters really written really well. And now in our editing phase, we're going to edit through and see what is and what isn't really working in that book. But in our autumn, or this premenstrual, we've also got this little critic that sits on our shoulder. And it's the same critic that when you look in the mirror at this part of your cycle says, oh, your bum's looking big in that. You can't wear that dress. Oh, no, you definitely know your hair's looking awful today. And you just criticize yourself, or you feel like you're not good enough to go out and present, or to do this or to do that. And the same with this book. You've got this critic, and this critic could be a little bit harsh. So you just need to be a little bit mindful that you can edit things, but have a backup on your computer just in case. But it's a good time for going through your website, going through your ideas of what do you want to do with your business. Just use it as a time to kind of shed through the layers. Excuse me. It's also the time when, if we come to sex again, when you are not going to tolerate crap sex. You are going to definitely be going for quality over quantity this time, because this is that time. We actually call it the dominatrix, because this is where the woman takes control, goes, you're not going to do it right this way, you're going to do it how I want it. And you're going to tell them. This is where being an open communicator with your partner is a really good opportunity to kind of go, that's not working for me when you do it this way. Could we maybe try it this way? And the other thing that is really useful to know about your autumn phase is your spatial awareness and your clumsiness. So please be mindful of your good crockery and driving expensive cars and things like that, because your ability to park the car or judge the spatial awareness really alters in this part of your cycle. We have a standing joke. My brother lives with me at the moment, and he understands my menstrual cycle really quite well. So I have a calendar up on the wall, and he knows that day 17 for me, because I have a 23-day cycle, he gets the red pen, and he gets day 17, he draws a line down to day 23, and he's like, danger zone. But we drive to the gym every morning, and it's now a standing joke. There's this corner that we have to turn. And the other day he said to me, you're day 17 or 18, aren't you? He said, I know, because how close you were to the curb. He was spot on. I was day 17. And then I was on day 6 of my cycle, and obviously I had made a nice sweeping round, didn't go anywhere near the curb, and he went, I reckon you're on day 6 or 7 of your cycle. Like, this is how in tune my brother has become now with my cycle, is to know where I am in accordance to this curb that we drive past every morning. And that is also something for you to be mindful of, that I've tried parking the car in this part of my cycle, and I just find it really difficult. But the rest of the month, it's no problem. So if you've got children, I also noticed when my daughter walked through the door, and she in one day, she managed to drop a plate, a bowl, and a glass by walking through the same door. And I was like, what is going on? And then I suddenly thought, she must be in her premenstrual phase, because there's no way that she would normally drop all of those things or hit her arm on the door as she walked through. If you play sport, when I played netball, my netball team wouldn't let me play netball in this part of my cycle, because I'd either pass to the wrong person or I'd drop the ball all the time. So you can see kind of how that clumsiness can really come into effect. You end up with more bruises. Suddenly your door frames have just gone like this. They've become so much smaller. And they haven't, actually. Obviously, it's just that your spatial awareness has really changed. So there's quite a few different aspects to this. But I think the most important thing with the warrior phase is about really listening in to what isn't working for you, what is coming up for you, who is irritating you, what is irritating you, but also learn how to listen to your body. One of the things that I teach on my course is what I call a full body yes or a no. And I get them to stand still, I get them to ground themselves, and they have to say the word yes, yes, yes 3 times with conviction, and they feel their body move one way or the other. It's kinesiology. And then you say the word no, and you feel which way your body goes, so that you know which way your body's responding. You then can check in and make sure that your name, so that you know which way that it's all kind of lining. You ask questions where you say, you know the answer is yes. But obviously you can do it in such a way that your body just naturally goes with it. And in this part of your cycle is a really good time to do some check-ins with how you feel about something. So if something is coming up for you all the time, and you're noticing you're getting irritated by the same person or the same thing, check in as well, do a full body yes, get your response to your body of like, is this working for me? And then take it into your menstrual cycle, into your bleed, because this is where the wisdom comes. And like I say, then use the rest of the cycle. If you have horrendous PMT, it's because your body is trying to tell you something. Your womb is speaking to you. She's either telling you, slow down, please, honor me when you have your period, give me some rest. Or it's saying, you've got stuff going on in your life that is not working for you. Get rid of it, edit it. So really be mindful of what it is that your premenstrual phase is telling you. So as much as it's the phase that everyone goes, oh, I hate that, and it's the phase that most partners don't really like, it is probably one of the most important parts of your cycle. Okay. Okay. There was a lot on premenstrual. I've written a lot of slides. Are we sharing these slides as well for people, Rosemary?
Well, they won't be on YouTube. I mean, we can attach them to the next newsletter if you like.
Yeah, if people want them, just so they can read through.
Okay. Yeah.
So obviously I've talked a little bit about how we can improve our menstrual cycle to improve our lives, using it in our relationships. One of the great things as well, which I didn't mention, is if you know where your friends are in their cycle, then you know not to take things personally. So I have my best friend, I can tell by the way she responds to a text message sometimes. I just write back, I'm like, are you in autumn? It's like, yes. And I know, okay, this is why I've got a short, sharp response. This is why I'm not getting that lovey-dovey-ness of her. And I just know that then I'm not going to take it personally. And the same thing I teach my daughter, so that her and her friends can start to understand and recognise all of their cycles, so that they know that when so-and-so is being like a little bitch at school, it's probably because she's in her autumn. If she's like it all month round, then it's just because that's her personality. But if she's just like it for a week and she's doing something nasty, don't take it personally. Just recognise that that's where she was in her cycle. Yeah, and actually, note on the bottom here, social media. What social media posts trigger you? And that's not just about, your friends that post their dogs or their food or their bikini shots. It's also about, like current affairs or things like that. Things that, say, for example, when the Me Too movement was going on, and if that triggered you, well, maybe that's a chance for you to also look into, is there something in your story or your family story that is actually resonating within your cellular memory? So there's also that kind of part where you can go like a lot deeper into your menstrual cycle about what is coming up in your autumn phase for you. We talked about friendships. And like I say as well, with work, you can use the menstrual cycle to work through a process of, so this book, we've got the idea, we've written the 20 chapters, we've kind of focused on 3, we've done the editing, we take it back into our bleed and we go, right, let's start afresh with what I've got now. How do I need to improve this? And you work and keep working that cycle. And the best time to put anything out like into the world is your summer. You are at your most confident. So your energy is giving off that summer confidence. It's like you believe in yourself. And if you're going out there into the world and putting a project, even if it's your website or a newsletter or whatever it is, if you're putting that out there in your confident energy and you believe in yourself, then other people are going to believe in yourself. But if you're putting it out in your autumn, when you're like, oh, I'm really not good at this, I shouldn't be doing this, or people are going to think it's like, a lot of hogwash stuff, then that's the energy it's going to be received with. So whatever energy you put something out with is how it's going to be received. Yeah, autumn and winter, focus on your mundane projects. I always do my boring admin stuff in my autumn and winter, but I'm actually quite good at doing all my accounts and the tedious kind of jobs that I have to do with my admin. I'm better at doing them in my autumn and winter because my mind is not going 100 miles an hour. I can focus a lot better. I may not be able to speak so well, so actually stringing a sentence together is not so good in my autumn, but actually looking and slowing down and doing the mundane jobs is a really good time to do that. So we've got here, this will obviously be there for you. So you can go back and refer to this with any creative project and you can just adapt it to whatever you've got going on. If it's a website, if it's an idea of running the retreat or an idea of running a course, whatever it is. When I actually ran my womb and fertility massage course, the very first year, not that I was aware that I was doing it, but it went through this process. And so by the time that I taught it in the second year, it was a whole different course because it had adapted and gone through that process. And so you keep repeating the cycle until you are really happy with it and you're ready to put it out. And that's the same with your babies. You know, you keep them close to you until you're ready really to energetically let them be let loose into the world. Where's my excuse me. So to have the optimal physical and the emotional well-being, we really do need to listen to our cyclical changes. We need to rest when our body requires it. We need to like slow down. We need to go inwards when we need to, not try to push ourselves. So you don't want to go to parties when you're in your autumn phase. You know, if you're feeling cranky, you don't want to be around those people. So like I said, that's when I kind of brought back in that spring idea of in spring, and someone says, oh, will you come here? Will you come here? And you're like, yeah, I want to go to all those parties. But they're falling your autumn. So just be mindful of that, because when you get to autumn, you're never going to have to make an excuse, or you just have to turn around to people and go, oh, I'm really sorry, I'm going to let you down. I can't go to it. It really depends on how your autumn phase is for you. And it depends on how much you want to go to something. But if you push your body and you don't listen to it, or your womb, or your whole body actually, then you're going to get physical conditions. You're going to get period pain, fatigue, you're going to get real heightened PMS symptoms, or you're going to get irregular cycles. You're also going to find, and I didn't bring this in with the oral contraceptive pill, but you know, when you're linear, but also the same with when you're linear or when you're not listening to your body, you're going to have a lack of creativity. So you're not going to be knowing what really is bubbling away inside your womb, what juiciness is in there. So if we think about our ovaries, they're the seeds of life. That's where everything starts. And so that's our ovulation time, but they then go and they nestle into our womb where we nurture them and we allow those ideas to come out. And so that's why it cycles round. But if we are, so with the ovulation, if you are being suppressed, whether that's by your own self-limiting beliefs or someone in your life that's saying, oh, you can't do that, you just stay as a housewife, you can't go off and be a singer in a band, that was random, then you're going to have ovulatory pain. You're going to get moody ovulation because you're not able to express your full creativity. And that is what we're here for as women. We are the creatrix of life. So just be mindful as well about whether you're getting pain at ovulation and maybe what's that coming up for. It may also be because you may have a mother wound, and our mother wounds often come up in our ovulation time as well. So one of the things that you can do is do some menstrual charting. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. I think I'm just going to check here. I've done like a little example. It doesn't have to be anything like that, but you want to track. So start on day 1 of your cycle. If you're not bleeding, start on day 1 of the new moon. And you write down 3 key emotions or feelings that you feel every day. And you start to know your own cycle. So you'll start to know that, for example, day 5 or 6, as you're coming out of your period, roughly, and you're just starting to go into your kind of pre-ovulation, you don't go from full-blown, I'm in rest period to through the roof, because if you do that, you're going to crash and burn. That period of time relates to those really early years when you first got your period. So say around 11 to like 13, 14. If you think back to how you were at that time, you're in that point of your life where you don't really know who you are. You're trying to fit in. You feel a bit vulnerable. You feel like everyone's talking about you because you're in that, you know, especially for a woman and you're at school and you're a girl and you're at school. You know, all the girls are like really bitchy and they'll talk about each other and there's all that backstabbing going on, there's that sister wound stuff. It's a really icky time of our life. And that relates to those first couple of days when you come out of your period and you're starting to come into your pre-ovulation. So you can feel maybe a little bit irritable, maybe a bit vulnerable, maybe you can feel a little bit paranoid. So see how you're feeling at that time. And you might kind of go, oh, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to be feeling like this. Claire said we're supposed to be feeling happy because it's our spring. These couple of days, they're a little bit tricky. And then you can have a look at your own teenage life and see what was going on for you at that point. So you want to have a look at how you feel about exercising. I mean, exercising should change through your menstrual cycle as well. You definitely don't want to be doing heavy weights or lifting or running like aerobics or anything like that in the 3 days leading up to your period and during your period, because your womb is heavier. And it means that if you're doing that kind of exercise, you're going to be pulling on the ligaments, and that means that you're going to weaken the ligaments that are holding your womb in place. But also you'll notice that you'll have those spring and summer where you're like full boom, you can lift heavier weights, you can, do the aerobics classes or whatever it is that you're doing fitness wise. And then you may want to slow down, and you shouldn't really do hardcore gym exercises when you've got your bleed, because your timing is to rest and to just nurture your body. And so that's more of a time where you definitely want to just drop in and do some stretching, some yoga. So you see there, you've got all these different things. Notice how your clothing changes, your desire for sex, your desire to be around certain people, and then just mark it throughout the month. It's such a valuable tool. And that's when you get to know, like for me, I know that day 17, that's when I tip over. And as my dad and my brother like to say, because I always talk about my cycle, and they align that to the Tour de France because they think that's funny. But they say, oh, you've gone round the bend. And me going round the bend means that I've turned the corner from my nice, happy Clare phase into my don't mess with me phase. And that's what my turn the corner means. So you can then start to understand, and then you'll go, oh, okay, that's why I feel this way. I'm not depressed or I'm not anxious. Well, you might be anxious, but it's not an over anxiety. It's because of this is where I am in my cycle. And then look at all the other things as well. Questions: who's irritating you? What brings joy to your life? What isn't working for you? What makes me shift my moods? And also, what phases of my cycle do I like? What phases do I rush through? Do I take my time to rest in my menstrual period? And so as we come to the end, empowered women, we have wisdom, we have understanding, and we have connection to our bodies and our mind. And if we really allow ourselves to tune in, it can just help us and those around us to live a more peaceful, connected, and authentic life. So I hope that information is valuable. Have we got any questions, Rosemary?
Hi, Claire. That was really, really interesting. Do you know what it brought up for me, actually? It was a reminder that female athletes have finally started talking about their menstrual cycles and how they impact on their running. Because I don't know if you follow athletics, but one of the most recent races, Dina Asher-Smith absolutely pulled up, and she had a good chance of winning, and she pulled up because she got cramps because she was on her cycle. Finally, some of them are talking about the impact of trying to race when they're on their periods.
Finally, that's good, isn't it?
Finally, yeah, I think it's brilliant. They've gone, no, we don't care. We're not going to see it as taboo. We're going to say this is one of the things that we have to think about as women when we are exercising and when we're actually trying to compete.
Yeah. Absolutely, it's about time, really. We do live in obviously that life where people think we need to be linear. We're not men, and there's a lot of women out there that think it's weak for us to take time off to have a day of rest for our period. But they're just women that live in a linear fashion, and they're also women that are completely disconnected from their womb and their wisdom. And I'd much rather, honour my cycle and honour other women's cycles. And it's great that it's coming out into the news finally.
I think so. I think coming back to the period as well, the other thing that's coming up is as you said, the idea of the red tent, which most people have never heard of. This withdrawal, and in fact, you look in so many traditions, it's seen as when you're menstruating, you're impure. But you go, you have just surely. I don't know what your opinion is. Just slightly misinterpreted a withdrawal that was there from the beginning.
Yeah, there's so much, exactly, there's so much shame and disgust, and a lot of cultures, especially I know in the Hindu culture, you can't go into temples, you can't go into kitchens, you can't do this, you can't do that, and a lot of cultures are like that. And I know that a lot of men, if you even in the Western world, you talk to men about they think that having sex on the period is dirty as well. And actually our period blood is like so super clean. It's actually really pure. but yeah, exactly that. It was always just seen as such a powerful time for women. And like you say, it's been switched, but that's the whole patriarchy, and we won't go down that route. But it's been taken out of context. And actually, if anyone hasn't read it, there's the Red Tent book by Anita Diamant, Diamant. And it's a lovely book. And it actually, I mean, it's kind of connected to the Bible, and it's connected to like Joseph and all his brothers, but it's like the sister and the mothers that are part of that. And I loved it because it was all about, how sacred women and their bleeds were. And it wasn't seen as disgusting. And it's unfortunate that shame and that guilt and that the shame and the disgust and the, that it's dirty and stuff, that's fed still to girls and everyone, worldwide. And, I really tried to, especially with my daughter, and I actually was lucky I got to go into my daughter's school and teach this to the parents and to staff and to some of the senior girls. About empowering young women. Next step is to get the boys in, but they needed to kind of test it first of all and see how the girls took it. But the parents loved it, and they were like, "Oh, this makes sense." And for them as well, if we think about our first period, most of our mums, would kind of just shove you in the brown paper bag with the sanitary pads, and they're like, sort it out, and they didn't really, or they'd phone their Auntie Mildred and they'd like go, "Oh, guess what? She's got a period," and the child just feels mortified. So it's all about, we don't bring in maiden ceremonies. And in the olden days, that's what they always did. We are bringing them back in now, where we honour girls and we kind of do a menstrual, like, a maiden ceremony when they get their first period, like a menarche ceremony. And it's about taking away that kind of shame. And I know I talk freely. I did a presentation once. There was a lot of men there as well, women. It was the first day of my period. And I stood up and I said, "Look, I'm really sorry. I'm feeling quite tired. I might get my words a little bit muddled because I'm on the first day of my period." And I watched all these faces. It's like, oh, yeah, I mean, I have no qualms about saying that I've got my period. It's like no problem. But I realise that other people find it like, ugh, like, how dare you tell me that information? But it's like buying sanitary pads. And that's a good point, actually, on a very quick note, actually, sanitary pads and Tampax. The normal ones, they're full of bleach. They make you bleed more, and they've got yep. The Tampax have got a load of like little plastic fibers in them. So you pop that inside, and as you pull it out, all those little plastic fibers get stuck in your vaginal canal. And so the idea of that they're made with bleach is because it makes you bleed heavier. So you use more of their products. So the best ones, obviously, I love. I actually have period knicker, as in they are ones that you can just wear. You don't need to put anything in them. They are fantastic. And they're great for my daughter to take to school because nobody knows the difference. You get cloth pads, just reuse them. They're lovely. They're like little fluffy vagina blankets. Or you've got organic. You've got organic yoni. I think they're called yoni ones. They sell them in Sainsbury's. Tampax and things. So if you really need to use like a Tampax and stuff, and which you may do if you're swimming or going to the gym or whatever, then you've got those ones, and they are all natural, and so there's no bleach, and you've got no fibres being left inside you. But yeah, that's another big thing that doctors don't tell you. And the other thing is when you go on the pill, if you go on the pill under the age of 20, you're stunting the luteinizing hormone, which is responsible for the second part of your cycle, and you're also damaging the cervical crypts that make your mucus. So it's one of the reasons why so many people have fertility issues when they've been on the pill for a long time.
Is that right?
Yeah. So, but doctors don't tell you that information because they obviously don't make any money from that.
That's all right. Well, we will tell them that information, Claire.
Thank you.
I did, but one other thing that I think is also interesting is you say different lengths of cycles. You say you have like a 23-day cycle. Other people will have 5-week cycles.
Yeah, and they're all fine. Sorry.
Any reason why?
Well, I know that my cycle is short because I'm heading towards the perimenopausal, menopausal part of my life, and it's been like that since I birthed my daughter. But I think it's as long as I mean, if it's really long, like excessive over 5 weeks, then you're more likely to have PCOS, so polycystic ovarian syndrome. But it's just getting to know your own cycle. So if you're always 23 days or always 30 days, that's okay. We don't have to be 28 days. I mean, my cycle is quite short, but before having my daughter, I was a 26-day cycle, so it was fairly normal. If someone of us 25, 30-year-old had a 23-day cycle, and that I'd be a little bit concerned, because that's not going to necessarily be a good fertile cycle, because I haven't got enough time for the womb lining to build up. But obviously at my age, I'm quite happy for it to be a non-fertile cycle. But also stress, obviously stress creates. So the first part of the cycle is the follicular, and that is the part that will change with stress. Whereas the luteal phase, which is the second part of the cycle, that normally once you've got a luteal phase, that stays the same. So unless you do anything drastic to change it. So if your cycle goes 23 days, 25 days, 29 days, 23 days, it's your follicular phase that is changing. And it could be that you've had stress in the month before that will then affect your hormones for the next month.
That is so interesting. Do you know, there's so much stuff that we need to know that is not taught. You know, it's just taught. A menstrual cycle is 28 days. You know, well, it isn't, is it?
No. And we don't, even if you've got a 28-day cycle, you know, you don't necessarily ovulate on day 14. You could ovulate on day 16 and still have a good fertile 12-day luteal phase, or you could ovulate on day 11 and have a 17-day luteal phase. I just to quit maths then. But that's all fertile, that's all healthy. But yeah, doctors don't, I think it's because doctors don't, they're not taught it. So therefore they can't share it. And it's a lot of knowledge and understanding for them really to take on, and they probably don't care.
I don't think it's that. I mean, I think that, and it's a digression, but I think there's an awful lot of healthcare which is not focused on women's health.
Yep.
You know, and whether, you know, it's even down to drugs, because drugs have not in the past been tested on women, they've only been tested on men, and that can have dire consequences because women's bodies react differently.
Exactly.
And I think it does boil down to a bias against women's health.
I'm glad you said that, not me.
I know. Sorry. I'm happy to say it.
That made me laugh.
You know, even like I used to teach antenatal classes, and you know, a lot of people working that field would call the pregnant maternity services the Cinderella service. You know, the service that got no money. Yeah.
Well, it is shocking, isn't it?
It is shocking, and I yeah, there's so much that kind of needs to be put right in understanding women's wisdom, and also bodies, and how we're not just some kind of different type of man.
Absolutely.
Which I think medically is almost how women are seen, even though we have very different parts and very different hormones. But I think you're kind of explaining, thinking very much that it's we're very much based about cycles, which we do know. Yeah. I think the thing that comes on the said that, so once, like me, you know, I haven't had a period for years and years and years because I'm well menopausal.
Oh, that one.
Well menopausal. But I've never thought of kind of looking at a cycle or a phase of doing different kinds of things and still having different focuses in different phases.
Yeah. And then we can also look into, you know, the external seasons, you know, as in like, I was thinking about this today because I was saying I always love at this point of the year, I always get a week of illness at this point of the year. And it's because it is my chance. I'm going into, you know, we're going into autumn, so I'm going into that editing phase. So it's my time to kind of slow down and clear out and get rid of all the crap from my body. But it's also the time of year. I never do a spring clean. I never spring clean through my house, or like, you know, for my closet and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But in autumn, I always love to edit through my clothes and do the charity run. And I was thinking about this today. I'm like, well, of course I do. You know, I've naturally just been living in tune with what autumn actually represents. But it's funny how in society we always think about the spring clean, which, you know, I get it, you know, we do the cleaning of the house, but I never kind of, you know, go through that purge of the house. And it's only because it came up in conversation with a few other people saying to me today that they were doing the same thing.
Really?
And I think we all kind of do it in, you know, we live in tune with the cycles in small ways, everybody.
Yeah, what was the other question? So would you say it's still the case that in certain parts of the world where there is less street lighting, less artificial lighting, that people are more in phase with one another and in phase, say, moon-wise?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I haven't actually read any statistics, but I definitely think that if that is the case, they are living just as we did in the centuries gone by, and so naturally they would be living in tune with this. And they do tend to live more cyclical anyway, don't they? You know, they live more. They eat the foods that are naturally being grown in that season. You know, they're not kind of rushing down to Sainsbury's and getting strawberries in December. You know, so they live more in tune. So I'm sure that their cycles would be too, and they birth. I mean, obviously, I know you love talking about birth. I love talking about birth. They birth more naturally because they are living in tune with their bodies, and they know and they trust their bodies to do it. They're not handing their bodies over to, you know, the doctor who says put your legs up in stirrups.
Yeah.
They know that, you know, you squat and you work with your body. And the same is they wouldn't stick on, you know, go and pee on a stick to go, look, I'm fertile today. They would just know. So yeah, I think Indigenous cultures, they still absolutely live, and they would have their bleeds probably more cyclically as well. Oh, probably more in tune with nature.
That was very interesting what you said as well. You said you get a little spot that tells you which side you're ovulating.
Yeah, so you get it's like a little pea-sized lump, and it's in your inguinal groin, in the inguinal lymph nodes. So in the groin, if you feel around, you can feel if you're ovulating on your right side or your left side, because the little pea lump comes up.
Wow.
I mean, you have to kind of have a feel around that area, kind of on a daily basis, to start to recognise what is and what isn't there anyway, and then you'll start to notice. But yeah, we have these natural signs that tell us.
I can't even try that out. Right, I'm going to have to ask my daughter to try that one out.
Yeah.
On that point, I think we've probably come to the end, but there's so much there that, you know, we could break down and just really go into, I think, in terms of women's health. That would be amazing. Yeah. Anyway, so I want to really, really thank you, Clare.
Oh, my pleasure.
Bringing a different perspective to women's health and seeing it in a lovely cyclical, seasonal way, and working with the body as opposed to just thinking every single day is the same when it isn't.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for giving me the space. I always could talk about this stuff, so it's always a pleasure.
Also, thank you for giving me an excuse for having zero spatial awareness. Thank you so much, Clare.
My absolute pleasure. Next time you hit a curb, you'll think of me.
Anyway, yeah, if anyone wants to be in touch with Clare, what's your website, Clare?
At the moment, it is still fertilitymassage.co.uk. But if you are on Instagram or on Facebook, I am empoweredfeminine.co. And then my new website will be up and running hopefully very soon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.